gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis. What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you? It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, is it not?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. You look good, Coach.
Oh, try it. Thank you.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Off the Air here in the Quad Cities. Thursday, February 13th. It's funny, I looked down and I wrote down January 13th on my little cheat sheet. No, February 13th it is. Hopefully everyone is enjoying the sunshine, the no snow in the air, all of that good stuff as we get closer and closer to the weekend. Thank you guys on YouTube for joining us live. We appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, please do so. That helps us out a bunch. We're getting closer to 700 subscribers. We're working towards 1,000. That's my main goal right there. So if you are subscribed, tell a friend or two or 10 or 20 or however you can to help us out as we continue to build and grow something pretty special, pretty fun right here in the Quad Cities. We have a fun show to get to today. Coming up in just a matter of moments, we'll be joined by my good friend, Tom Kakert. We like to do Tommy Tuesdays, but our schedule has been a little funky the last couple weeks. So Tom will join me here in a little bit to talk about a big night for the Iowa basketball program, something we haven't talked about a lot or mentioned a lot or had been able to say that a lot. A good night, a big night for Iowa basketball. They go on the road and they got their first victory of the season on the road in a true home, or I should say road environment. Last night against Rutgers. We'll talk about that in just a matter of minutes. And also, it was a good night for Moline's own Brock Harding. So a lot to get to when it comes to the Iowa Hawkeyes and Brock Harding in just a matter of moments. Also coming up in just a little bit, I'd say around 10:40, 10:45, we'll be joined by former Rock Island standout and current Tennessee softball standout, Taylor Pannell. Was really excited to get caught up with her. I remember doing a feature story with Taylor when she was a freshman at Rock Island. We caught up last night, recorded an interview for today, and not that I haven't spoken to her since she was a freshman, but the way she's matured and just the professionalism that she has now as a redshirt sophomore in college was just awesome to see. It was great to see her face, great to see her smile, and she's playing some really good softball, played great softball last year after an injury. So we talked about that injury and what it put in perspective. A bunch to get to softball-wise when it comes to Taylor Pannell in just a little bit, which is the cool thing because you look outside and you see the snow, you think softball and baseball, it's got to be a long ways away. It's not. They've already started on the softball fields Division I wise, and the Division I baseball starts tomorrow. So a lot to get to when it comes to softball and baseball season. Taylor Pannell coming up in just a little bit. And we've actually talked a lot of high school football this week as well. You don't expect that in February, but some news of Alleman coming back, playing varsity football. There's always coaching changes throughout the area. So my good friend, Greg Armstrong from View from the West podcast joins me in the second hour of the show to talk some off-season high school football news. And that's true because in NFL and in college, there's always off-season news. There's off-season news in high school football as well. So Greg Armstrong coming up in just a little bit as well. If you've missed any of the shows this week, go back and check them out. They're on all the podcasting platforms as well. So if you don't want to look at my ugly face, and I completely understand that, you can check it out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, Podbean, you name it. We are on that podcast platform. If you use a podcasting platform that you don't see Off the Air with Matt Randazzo on, let me know and I'll figure out why, but I'm pretty sure we're on everything you can possibly need to be on. So go check out the shows. Yesterday's show, we had Jim Madsen talking Illinois athletics, especially the basketball program. We were joined by the wild man, Dan Burrich, who always has something opinionated and fun to say. We did our Wild Man Wednesdays as we do each and every week. And also Jake Brent talked to Iowa State. So we'll talk a lot of Iowa today. If you're an Illinois fan or an Iowa State fan, go check out yesterday's show. And also yesterday on the show, my youngest, Carson Randazzo, sat in that seat. I did a pretty good job. Didn't say anything too bad for the 2-3 minutes I let them be on because my kids were home with a snow day. So that was fun as well. So check that out from yesterday. Earlier in the week, we talked to Carter Bell, who's a Bettendorf standout, a South Dakota football standout getting ready for the NFL. So great conversation with him. And Monday's show was a ton of fun. Pat Anger, Julian Vandervelde, Jeff Schmalbach, and Braden Freeman. So 4 really fun guests on Monday. So check out all of the shows if you missed it this past week. We appreciate it if you would do that. Kind of joked before the show, or as the show started, there is snow on the ground. We're a little disappointed. We were expecting, 6, 8, 10 inches of snow. My boys were all excited to sled and all that kind of stuff. They got a little sledding in, but out here in Moline, we probably got 2-3 inches of snow tops. So Snowmageddon for us here in Moline, not what we expected. The kids got a day off school, God bless them, but the 3 inches of snow that we possibly got, not what we were expecting. Of course, it's tough to forecast. I'm not being too mean to all my weather buddies because I know just north there was 6, 7, 8 inches of snow. So we, I guess, survived. If you look at it that way, if you're a fan of the snow and you wanted to sled and do a bunch of stuff, we missed out. But I guess there's more coming this weekend as well. So we'll see if we can get a little more snow before the spring gets underway. But we'll start today's show off by talking Iowa basketball. And it's been a while since we've gotten to talk a lot about Iowa basketball in a good sense. But it was Iowa going on the road last night and taking care of business, getting their first road victory of the season as they knocked off Rutgers 84-74, your final in that face. Earlier in the week, we were joined by the better part of the Hawkeye Report. Now we're stuck with this guy's ugly mug, Tom Kakert, back with us. Tommy, first and foremost, your guy Kyle did a fantastic job. That was a lot of fun the other day.
Yeah, he's good at what he does. He's good at talking women's basketball. He's really good at talking Iowa baseball. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no, he did a good job.
I associate myself with good hires.
And good hires. You never hired me. I was going to say you associate with good people, and I don't know if I would go with that description. I don't know if Anger would go with that description, but you probably don't associate yourself with the best people, but hires, you do okay. Hey, the Iowa Hawkeyes did okay last night. In a game that I don't think too many people expected too many things from, maybe myself included, they went on the road and they got themselves a nice win. What did you see from them last night?
Well, I was close to the right score. I just had the wrong teams in the teams in the wrong order. I picked like 85-75, I think, for a win for Rutgers, and it ended up being 84-73. Iowa wins. So the right shape, wrong size kind of thing for me. But I thought this was a game where experience showed up, where Josh Dix and Peyton Sanford, who have been through it, because Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper are going to end up being maybe the second and third draft picks in the NBA draft this year. But some of the warts of inexperience showed up with that team, and now they're 12-13 on the year, and they might not make the Big Ten tournament, and you've got two of the three best players in terms of draft status this year. So kind of wild, but I don't know that you've seen this very often, where you miss 14 straight 3-point field goals and end up still winning a basketball game. But that's exactly what Iowa did. And our guy Brock Harding, Moline's own, 13-7, 1 turn, 4 rebounds. Not bad for a kid that wasn't starting, was in the starting lineup because Drew Thawell is hurt. Iowa down 2 starters, and go on the road and win. First road win of the year too. We're now 1-5 on the road.
Tommy, you mentioned it. It was like an anti-Iowa victory when it comes to what they normally do. They normally will shoot a high volume of threes, and if they're winning, they're making a lot. They didn't do that. They usually struggle on the boards. They win the rebounding battle. They've struggled with free throws. They knock down their free throws. And defensively, they played well. I kind of pointed out on the Hawkeye Report podcast that we recorded that, there was a 7-8 minute stretch at the end of the first half where they didn't play well, gave up like 20 points in 7 minutes. Other than that, they played pretty well defensively, all things considered. It really was a different type of victory from Iowa that you hadn't seen yet this year.
Yeah, it was. And it was different guys stepping forward at different times where you had, that stretch where Brock gets a bucket, and then Rutgers gets a bucket, but then Josh Dix goes on a 10-0 run and puts Iowa in the lead when it seemed like, it seemed like Rutgers went strong into halftime, but, Brock got a bucket late that kind of got it under double figures again, and Rutgers came out flat to start the second half, and I thought that was a big deal. Just kind of showed some of that immaturity that I was talking about, where they just didn't come out, and Iowa kind of punched them in the mouth a little bit, cut into the deficit a little bit, made it a little tighter than it was, and then Josh goes on that run, and it's back and forth for a while, and then Iowa just kind of pulls away late with Peyton hitting a dagger three, Price with a bucket right after Ace Bailey tried to answer Peyton. Price made him pay and got the nice driving layup, and that was pretty much it. And then Brock finished it off with the uncontested layup for the 11-point win. I
talked to my oldest before the game, and I said to him, and everyone knows I'm biased when you cover.
Did he send out any more angry tweets?
Angry tweets. Oh, Charlie?
Yeah.
Oh, he got yelled at by Dad about that.
Yeah, that tweet disappeared, didn't it?
It disappeared fast. It's hilarious that you saw that. But with that being said,
I was like, "Whoa!"
It wasn't up very. It wasn't up very long, and he told me what he tweeted, and I said, "Take it down right now."
Sounded like something maybe his the man who helped create him may have said.
Well, I'd like to meet that guy, whoever that is. So, no, I said to him, I go, Brock's going to play well tonight, and everyone knows that I'm a Brock Harding fan, and I understand the struggles that he's had, and he went through a 2-3 game stretch where he didn't play very good basketball. But when this team and this offense that was one of the highest scoring offenses in basketball, when they're playing their best, it's when he's steering the ship, when he's driving the car. It looks different now. I mean, I get the fact that Owen's not there and Drew Thelwell's not there. And people don't talk about, not that he made a huge impact a lot during the season, but I think people expected more from Cooper Koch if he was healthy this year, and he's not been there. So I know that they're down some guys, but Iowa plays their best when that guy's, we joke about it, but cooking. And he was cooking last night. 7-1 is really impressive. And to get 13 points out of him, for him to shoot 5 of 10 from the field, to him to be, just pesky on defense, that's where Brock is playing his best basketball. I know I'm biased, but he played really well last night, did he not?
Yeah, he played a terrific game. I thought he was really strong and played solid defense. I mean, they were going after him. That's what teams are doing. I mean, they went right after him in the first possession of the game when he's guarding Williams, and they went right at Brock down low. But him, he's not going to back down from anybody. I don't care who he's against. If Owen Freeman was trying to post him up, he'd fight him. That's just who he is. Yeah. He deflected a couple of passes, I thought, in this
3
game.
steals. He had 3 steals.
Yeah. And he just played a really solid floor game. And the big thing for him is just he's got to keep the turns down. You know, 5 of 10 shooting. I'll take that from Brock. There's, you know what else? There was no thread started after the game complaining about Brock. You know,
What was there any
no.
thread started? Complimenting Brock. I don't understand. Like, why would that not be the opposite? If he played well, it's weird.
No. You can only complain, never praise. It's the rule on the message boards.
No, I get it. And he played well, and I think they're at their best when he's playing well, and he's really good in an offense that has weapons. And Josh Dix and Peyton Stanford and Owen early in the year are guys around him, and then Cooper if he was there and a shooter, Price when he's in, and then Drew and Traore. I mean, he's a guy that can do a lot of stuff without having to shoot the basketball, which is rare in today's age of college basketball. So I thought it was a really good performance from Brock, and I don't know how long Drew Thelwell is going to be out, but I think Iowa plays their best basketball when he's in there. He played 36 minutes. The other two guys that played almost the entire game are Josh Dix and Peyton Stanford. I think 38 and 39 minutes each.
The load that those two guys are taking on right now is just, I mean, in terms of volume of shots, in terms of what they're going through physically. We talked to Peyton last night about, did a little Zoom with him, and he basically admitted he's going to have surgery after the season to get right, and it's probably going to cost him, long term, just with opportunities for basketball and the professional level. And but he had, that's just the sacrifice that he makes. And Josh Dix, a week ago I wrote some stuff just about he had been really playing well. And then he had that 3-game stretch where he scored a grand total of 14 points in 3 games, and Iowa was just getting annihilated. And Peyton basically said, I don't know what he's going through every day, but I know he's not healthy. He just didn't want to say what was going on with him, but he's playing so hard and trying so hard to out there every game, just busting it and playing 40 minutes and guarding Dylan Harper, an NBA guy. One of the plays I thought was really interesting too, and Robbie Hummel picked up on it in the broadcast, was there was that one play, and I think it was a 1-possession game at the time, and it was late, and Brock ended up on Harper, and Harper settled for, I thought, he's going to just back Brock down, or he's going to try and cook him and get to the rim. And Harper settled for a 3 and clanked it.
Yeah.
I think he went for the big home run shot and he missed it. And I thought that was a critical play. But, Brock was in the right stance, and, the kid I think he just tried to get a home run there, and he should have just taken a double and tried to go to the bucket.
Yeah, no, he's settled. Tommy, you mentioned probably 2 of the top 3-4 draft picks are on the floor. Josh Dix was the best player on the floor last night, correct?
He was. Yeah. He was the best player.
And that's impressive.
But that's impressive. It just is. I mean, he is so, it's the Tristan Spurlock, one of the assistants for the Iowa staff, says this about Josh last year. Josh doesn't know how good Josh is. He was he just didn't believe that he was as good as he is. But his teammates know. Ask Brock about it. He's like, JD just kills people. That's what he said to me before the season. He's like, he just killing people out there. It's just what he can do, because his shot is so pure. And he hasn't showed up on a lot of the NBA draft things, but I think he's got a chance to play in the league because he can guard people, play that 3 and D. He's got enough size, and he can shoot it. So
it's finding some consistency, and that might be a mental thing too, of just going out there, and he's going to get it. I mean, he's going to have the chance because, like you mentioned, I think, and I can look and see, but Boy, I thought they each shot the ball probably 16. Yeah, they both shot the ball 17 times. So 34 shots between those two guys, and that's what's going to be out there. Lajee played really well too.
That's what's going to have to happen the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Hey, we should mention Lajee Mbale because he had a really good game too. I thought he was really assertive, aggressive, and a couple of big putbacks, aggressive rebounds. I thought he did well. I think Seydu finished with six rebounds, 7 rebounds.
Yeah, I think it was 9 and 6, and he only shot the ball 6 times. So I mean, he was efficient too.
He was matched up against Ace too, and I thought he did a pretty good job not letting Ace get to where he wanted to go and contesting. So solid effort from the Hawkeyes.
All right, a couple other things to get to with Tom Kakert from the Hawkeye Report. You got emotional Fran, which you don't get a lot of. It's funny. You get emotional Kirk a lot. You don't get emotional Fran. He showed emotion before with Patrick and everything he went through with the anxiety and then, of course, the cancer as well. So you've seen it.
Not very often.
Yeah, you've seen it, but not a lot.
He doesn't even in those situations.
So why last night? What was last night about? That's what everybody on social media, everybody Twitter's trying to figure out. Why emotional Fran? Obviously, there's theories, but why do you think Fran was so emotional last night?
I think this team's just been through a lot, and trying to win on the road is hard. And I think he was just really proud that this team could have, Thorwell's out, O's out. I mean, they're shorthanded. A lot of teams will just mail it in a Wednesday night in Piscataway, New Jersey, at the artist formerly known as the Rack, now Jersey Mike's Arena, I think is what they call it now. They could have just mailed it in, got on that plane and headed home to snowy Iowa, and instead they kind of just stuck together and fought. And that says a lot about the character of those guys. And I think that's what he was most proud of, was that they didn't mail it in, that they went out there. And even when they faced some adversity, going down 11 in the first half, and they could have mailed in the second half and just played it out. And they saw an opportunity and they took it. And was that Rutgers team that kind of looked like they wanted to get on the bus and get home, and not that Iowa team. And that says a lot about the leadership with Peyton and Brock in particular, because they're the two guys that are the vocal leaders of this team, that they were able to keep this thing together and keep it moving forward.
Yeah, and the thing is, they've been close. I know they didn't beat Purdue or Wisconsin, but they played well. They just didn't have enough to get over the hump, and last night they did. Okay, let's big picture this, because I talked to some Hawkeye fans who are like, yeah, that's cool. Like, exchange messages with the Bear Cage, who wasn't able to join us. He usually does a little breakdown after the game. Not able to do that this game, which is funny because we've broken down too many losses and we finally got a win to talk about. But the Bear Cage will be back soon. But he was pretty excited. Texted me, and there's Iowa fans that were like, oh, good win, quality win. The Randazzo household was a little fired up, but then there's the vocal other part of the fan base that is just like, all right, that was a nice, cute win, but where are we going with this? So this doesn't change maybe a huge part of the season, but this does put them back in the right direction too. And I know this isn't what you want to be playing for in February, but getting out of that bottom tier and actually getting into the Big Ten tournament. I guess it's like a baby step thing, Tom, where this was a big step towards that. And then they can start looking at the schedule, and maybe you can pick off a Northwestern and a Washington and teams like that. Where give me a big picture on what Iowa basketball looks like after a surprising victory against Rutgers.
I told somebody yesterday that I felt like they had to get to 6 wins to get to the Big Ten tournament. Now they're at 5. So it's, and I didn't know how they were going to get to 6.
Yeah, it's tough.
And there's no guarantee they will get to 6 because they've still got tough games. I mean, they go to Maryland Sunday, and that's a tough matchup because that's a really big, athletic Maryland team with Angel Reese's brother Julian and Derek Queen. He's another lottery pick that they're going to see this week. Then they got Oregon and Washington coming to Iowa City, and Washington's probably the game where they might be able to get that one. I think they'll be favored. Oregon will be a tough game. We got to still go to face your Illini down in Champaign.
The Illini, Tommy. Not everybody knows that inside joke on the Hawkeye Report podcast, the podcast that I helped Tommy out with. Yeah, it's funny. There's a lot of your listeners and your people who think I'm an Illini fan. I am just an unbiased member of the media, Tom. That's how I roll. So no, they got Illinois still. They got Michigan State at Iowa City. They got to go to Northwestern. Nebraska. They got to go to Nebraska. I mean, it's a tough road. But the
back end of the schedule was extraordinarily tough. This 8-game finishing stretch was going to be really hard. So they're going to have to find a way to get one. And I think if they get to 6, I think they'll be in pretty decent shape. So just because they'll hold some victories over some teams. So we'll see what it looks like, but I like their chances.
No, I agree with you, and I think it was a good victory for that. Now, if you're one of the pessimistic Hawkeye fans that are frustrated that we're sitting here in February talking about getting into the Big Ten tournament, into the NCAA tournament,
not exactly where you want to be.
And I get that frustration. I think I would just say enjoy the victory because it was a gritty victory and that's the thing I've been saying all year, Tom. You can have your gripes about whatever, apathy, Fran, all that kind of stuff, but the guys on the team are good dudes that are busting their butt. And it's in my opinion, it's a likable team. That's what I think is frustrating. Now, obviously, I know the point guard. I know the big guy. I've known them. I've gotten to know them as people. So that's part of it for me. But I think it's a good group of people that normally Iowa fans embrace. I don't think they want to yet embrace them yet. And there might be different reasons and variables for that. But you'd love to see that fan base embrace this team down the stretch.
You would like to see that, it starts to echo some of the toxicity of the Alford era, where I remember, and these guys, the guys in that Alford era that I'm going to talk about, had much more success on the court than this current group of guys. So I'm not comparing the players and the skill level or anything like that, but just I remember those 05, 06 teams, the Horner, Bruner, Haluska teams. I mean, no better people than Brew and Jeff Horner and Adam Haluska and guys like that. I mean, they were just awesome people. Mike Henderson on those teams, and go down the list. But
Doug Thomas, right?
Thunder Doug, Thunder Doug Thomas, and they had Alex Thompson on that team, and just a lot of good players. Eric Hansen, center, but specifically Horner, Bruner, Haluska, just because I covered the recruiting too and everything. But just the toxicity of the Alford era, you missed out on pretty good ball players. And I wonder about that with these guys too, that they're kind of getting ignored for their skill level and their ability. And frankly, I think they deserve more. And I say that, biasly with Brock and O, just because those guys are good people and their families are great people. And, Peyton and Price are just terrific guys. Drew Thelwell I wish I would have had 4 years with him. He's such a delightful guy to be around. I mean, Seydou Traore is just so thankful whenever he talks to us. I can go on down down the line of these guys. You can say a lot about Fran's recruiting probably, but he has recruited really good people that represent the program really, really well and are really skilled basketball players too.
Let me ask you a big picture for the Big Ten before I let you go. I'm
Sure.
trying to figure it out. We talked to Jim Madsen yesterday on the show. We've had Jake Brend on talking about, the Big 12 side of things. But when it comes to the Big Ten, we kind of talked. We didn't know if there was an elite team or a clear-cut team. And obviously Michigan State kind of got out early. I think right now Purdue's leading the conference, maybe at 11-2. But there's a lot of teams just kind of in that mix. Who wins the Big Ten regular season? Who wins the Big Ten tournament? And then which team goes the farthest in the NCAA tournament? So let's start with the regular season. Who do you think wins the regular season?
Boy, it's a good question.
Yeah, I know. I'm really good at this thing.
Yeah, I think Matt Painter. I'll always bet on Paint. But I have to look at the schedules because I think Michigan State might have the easier schedule, but I'm not positive about that. But I'll go with Purdue.
Okay, so
Big Ten tournament.
yeah, rack them and stack them there because is this one of those years where you can look and say, hey, 6 teams can win this thing?
The thing Michigan may end up winning the conference, but I don't think they're a great team because they turn the ball over too much, and I don't know that they'll stay long in March because they're the team I think out of the good group of teams right now that are looked at as good teams that have the most warts because they're one bad turnover game away from losing by 10 to somebody in the second round of the NCAAs.
No, I can agree.
I don't know if Michigan State's got enough of whatever it is. I don't know that they have it. They're a good team. They're more of a grinder Izzo team. I think I really liked the Richardson kid though. He's really good. Illinois got the highest ceiling.
I think so too.
But I don't know that they'll guard well enough to go deep.
Or shoot it well enough to go deep. I think sometimes they fall in love with that three-point shot. They're not very good at it.
The Lithuanian kid, I mean, he's a fabulous player. He's a top 5 pick maybe in the NBA draft, but he's not guarding very well. He's not.
Is this conference NBA-wise this year one of the better it's been in a while? When you look at the 2 kids at Rutgers, you look at the kid at Maryland who's going to be a top 5 pick, top 10 pick. You look at the 2 kids from Illinois are probably top 20, KJ probably top 10, and then Will Riley's probably going to get drafted in the top 20, top 25. That's just 3 teams alone that we're talking about that have guys that are going to get drafted. And sometimes you look at years and you're like, there's not more than 1 or 2 in the top 20. It feels like it's maybe a higher talent when it comes to guys that are one and done and heading to the next level.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is a good crop. It's a good crop of players. And then there's some really good college players. Braden Smith might be the most decorated of the players this year in the Big Ten, just from a national level. I think he'll be a first-team All-American and, in the conversation with Cooper Flagg and those folks for National Player of the Year. But is he a great NBA player? I don't know. He's certainly not probably leaving early and being a lottery pick.
Yeah.
Because he's 6-foot guard, but he's a really good player.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Trey Kaufman-Renn, saw him play last week. I mean, he's as improved a player as there is in the Big Ten. They've got, they've got some good players, and Michigan's got some really good players. I mean, Vlad Golden may end up playing the NBA. Danny Wolf. They've got some real talent. Purdue's got talent. Michigan State's got a lot of talent. So it's a talented league, just really talented league.
Yeah. I don't know if there's, like we talked about, a great elite team with some of this young talent.
There's no Purdue last year.
Well, and that's the thing is the Big Ten has had good teams in the last 4 or 5 years because they've been senior dominated or experienced teams. They've been men. I mean, you look at some of the Illinois teams, they were guys that have been playing, they're 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds. I think this team this league is more of a, the young talent is kind of what's shining, and they're not going to be there for years to kind of come together as teams. Hey, before I let you go, you went to Nashville, so you haven't maybe been up on everything, but me and your buddy Anger are getting close to an agreement on what we're going to do for our game of horse coming up maybe next week.
It's not hair versus hair?
Well, it's not hair versus hair because he doesn't have any hair. I almost cursed.
Well,
I almost said he doesn't have any. I don't want him to grow. That doesn't do anything for me. Like him growing hair isn't embarrassing.
I had an off color.
What's an off color? Pink?
Like green, purple.
So I think I might have him convinced to wear a sign at the corner of 53rd and Brady for an hour that says, "I lost in basketball to Matt Randazzo." Is that enough?
As long as he's wearing a dress.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well,
That would be funny.
I think
outfit.
I think that's soon.
Dress him like a clown.
That might be it. Because if I'm gonna put my hair on the line, and trust me, I don't have a good head of hair. It's not like I'm like, oh, I love my hair. I just got big ass ears, and I don't want to shave my head. And I'm at the point, Tom, that if you shave your head, you might not get the hair back.
Hey, there's ways to fix that.
Like, well, I don't want to.
Look at Brian Urlacher. Look at Brian Urlacher. He's got a full head of hair
Tom,
now.
I'm unemployed. I can barely make ends meet. I'm doing a podcast in my loft, for Christ's sake. Like that's what my life's become. I can't, and then I lose my hair. My wife leaves me. I'm on the street, and God knows what goes on after that.
She didn't marry you for your hair.
Why'd she marry me?
I don't know. Not for your hair, though.
I know. Hey, quickly before you go too, what is Iowa next? They're Sunday at Maryland?
Sunday, 4:00 at Maryland, FS1.
Okay.
And then they've got Oregon Wednesday and Washington that weekend. So
okay.
It's we're coming down the home stretch.
Absolutely. Tom's busy right now. Obviously, basketball is winding down. I hope. I don't mean it in the bad way, but basketball heating up as we go down the home stretch. But obviously, the Iowa women busy as well. Kyle's doing a great job on that and basketball. You're doing women as well, and you can get everything you need at the Hawkeye Report. I don't talk about that enough. If people are curious how to get on board, we talk about the podcast, we talk about the message boards and all that kind of stuff. How do people read and get more of your content, Tommy, if they don't already do, which they should?
They can come to the site and just go to HawkeyeReport.com and you become a subscriber, and it's like $1 for the first 7 days. They've got some other special offers that they're rolling out too here that we were just told about when I was down in Nashville this week. So there's opportunities there, and we've the thing we've really kicked up this year that's really good, in addition to all the great work that Blair Sanderson does on recruiting and Kyle's doing, our photographer Dennis, who's just awesome. Fabulous, and Dennis was in the Nike commercial from the Super Bowl.
No way.
Yeah, because he's one of the shots of Caitlin Clark.
Oh,
he's in the shot.
He real quick too. He also made a hole-in-one at my dad's golf outing.
Yeah, so incredibly, just one of the best people on the planet. And then we've added, a local Quad City guy, Tanner Lefevre, doing wrestling, and he is just, holy smokes, that guy is he's incredible.
Yeah, really
good. So, and he'll have previews of. Like this weekend, Iowa faces Minnesota. Got Gable Steveson hitting the mat against the Hawkeyes. So after his failed WWE career.
So if you need your Hawkeye hookup, Tommy's the place to go. The HawkeyeReport.com. Go check it out. Go subscribe or go get a membership and all that kind of stuff. And if you love the Hawks, that's the place to go. And Tommy, be good. We'll get you back in studio next week sometime and hanging out with us. But I appreciate you taking the time, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me on.
He is the one and only Tom Kakert. We got a lot more to get to on a Thursday here on Off the Air. Coming up, I'm super excited to be joined by a Rock Island standout doing huge things in the SEC. Taylor Pannell, softball standout for the Volunteers, former Rock Island standout, will join us next right here on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. We'll be right back.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Thursday here in the Quad Cities, and with all the snow on the ground, it's hard for people to get ready for, softball and baseball season, but it's right around the corner, and on the college level, it's officially here, especially at the Division I level, and one young lady making the Quad Cities extremely proud right now is my guest, Taylor Pannell, former Rock Island standout and redshirt sophomore down at Tennessee. Taylor, first and foremost, great to see you. You make me feel old because I remember covering you as a freshman, and to know that you're a redshirt sophomore in college makes me feel like an old guy.
No, yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a long time.
Yeah, super excited to catch up with you. And as we mentioned, softball season is right around the corner here in the Quad Cities. But for you, it never goes away. And you guys have already started. So before we start talking about the past and maybe last year, how has the start been? I know you had a successful start to the season. How is it being back in action here in February already at the Division I level?
No, yeah, it's awesome. Like the past month, we've been just scrimmaging, playing each other, and it's finally nice to get out in like warm weather. We were in Florida last week, and we go to Texas and California in the upcoming weekend. So yeah, it's just pretty exciting, like starting everything off.
That is very cool for you. For us here in the Quad Cities looking at the snow, it makes us jealous of you. Your career down at Tennessee got off to a good start, played a few games, and then you were injured your freshman season. Kind of talk about that, because from jump in high school, from your freshman year, you just played softball. And I know before that, you're just used to playing softball. What was it like to get there, to get that Division I level, and then kind of have to sit and get healthy and wait? What was that like for you?
No, yeah, I think it was honestly the hardest thing I've ever done. Like I got here, worked my whole life to get here, started, dream come true playing, and then like the second game, funny enough, it was against Illinois that I just popped my shoulder out and then kept playing on it. just got worse. Got the MRI. It was completely torn up. Like they were like, there's no chance even to rehab it. You have to get surgery. Like you're done. And thankfully enough, I'm really grateful that I would like 2 more games if I played, like I wouldn't be able to redshirt because it's like a certain percentage. I'm not exactly sure how it was, but yeah, I played just at the cutoff, so I was able to redshirt and get that year back. So rehabbed it that whole year, and then it just got better.
Had you been injured before? Had you gone through, maybe not to that extent, but what I can remember in high school, you're pretty healthy. Had you ever dealt with any type of injury through your life?
No, like that was the first time I've actually like had an injury that I had to like sit out for. Like normally like something small, I would still play through it. So that was the first big one.
To go through that, what did you learn about yourself? Not just softball wise, but mentally wise and having to deal with that. What did you learn about Taylor Pannell as you had to sit, kind of wait and watch and not have that game you love that's been part of you for so long?
No, yeah, I think forever, my whole life, I've been Taylor Pannell, the softball player. So I had to learn like how to do life without softball and being that like starter every day. And I just learned that it's just a game, like not to take it so seriously. And like my life does not revolve around it. Like it's going to be done one day and I have to live with that. So it's just not to take it so serious.
Awesome. Put life in perspective for sure. But hey, the good news is you were healthy last season and you hit the ground running. I think 7 homers, 33 RBIs. It took your team or helped your team get to the postseason, win some games, do well in the SEC tournament. What was it like to get back out there and after having a game taken away, hit the ground running and show the success that you had last season?
No, yeah, for sure. It was a rough start at first, still like fully getting back because I don't think I was 100% till like March fully. So like it was just awesome being able to feel free again and just play because it was a rough fall. But then once spring hit, then I was able to like fully go at it. And it was just awesome being able to play with the seniors we had last year and just trying to make a run for it. But it felt a little short, but that's okay. But it was just a good first like full season for me.
To get on the field, and I'm not saying you didn't have the confidence because you played some freshman year and all those kind of things, but to see it translate, you know what I mean? Because you played the game for so long at every different level, but at every different level, I'm sure you want to see it translate or the results to show up. To have the results at the highest level and the Division I level, what was that like for you to kind of make sure in your own mind that this is where you belong?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I always had the confidence to do it. Like I knew I could do it, and it was just pretty cool to see it like all work out and like honestly dreams come true. And I think it was pretty cool for like my parents and everyone back home just to see it, and just like seeing people watching me on TV is pretty awesome. Every text I get, it's like awesome. I think Coach Allison from high school texted me that just the other day, and it just puts it all like full circle moment for me.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about the Quad Cities in just a minute, but I want to stay on the field just for a few more questions because you now go into your redshirt sophomore year, but your third season down in Tennessee. What does Taylor Pannell know, maybe mentally and also physically? How have you changed as a softball player from walking onto campus as a freshman to now as a redshirt sophomore getting ready for your third season down in Knoxville?
Like I said, just not taking it so serious. I think every time I would get out my freshman year, I would be so like down on myself. And now it's just like you just learn from everything and just learn from your mistakes because they're obviously going to happen. Like no one plays it perfect, especially at this level. And just realizing that it's just the same person you were and it's just you're growing and just being able to just like smaller things matter here at the higher level. So, yeah.
You talked about the seniors last year. You see them leave. Now you go from being that redshirt freshman or that younger player to someone who's had that experience. Do you see your role changing, developing, being more of a leader on this softball team than maybe you were with that group of seniors there last year?
Yeah, for sure. I think just me having that experience last year, and I'm technically an upperclassman considered on the team. Like I've been here 3 years. I know how like we play and like our culture and what like we want to be as a team. And like I know I didn't play my freshman year, but I saw what it took to make it to the World Series. And I think we can just lean on that, and that's ultimately the end goal. So I think it's pretty cool that we have some people like me that have that experience.
You mentioned the World Series. I know that there's goals throughout the season, regular season, conference, all that kind of stuff. But you mentioned the World Series. Once you taste it, once you get in it, and it's one of those things, I'm sure it's addicting. Kind of talk about that, because at a school like Tennessee, that's kind of the expectation, is to play in an event like that.
No, for sure. I feel like it's every team's goal at this point is just be the last team standing. And obviously we can't look that far ahead because we have to look at what's coming up this weekend. But, I mean, I went there my freshman year. I couldn't play. I think that was the hardest weekend for me, just being present in that moment and not being able to play just because I was hurt. And, like, that we want that so bad. And I just want to be able to say I played there and, like, we won it. But, yeah, so I feel like that's just a goal in everyone, like the back of everyone's head, but we just have to focus on like what's coming up to get there.
Take me to Knoxville, Tennessee. That's home now. I mean, I know the Quad Cities is always home, so I'm not taking that away from you, trust me. And we're going to talk about the Quad Cities, but Knoxville, Tennessee. You go from being a Rock Island girl and you move to Tennessee. Take me off the field. What's Knoxville like? You're wearing that orange. I know you love being there. They've embraced you. Talk about the community and what it's like to be a volunteer.
I mean, yeah, obviously the weather is so much better here. And I feel like just the people, like everyone in Tennessee is a Tennessee fan. We'll be walking around just wearing the orange and everyone is just surrounding you with love and they just know who Tennessee is everywhere you go. And it's just, we have like the best fan base. Like football games every sport is insane with the fans, no matter what it is. And I feel like it just keeps growing every year because we keep getting better in all the sports aspects. So it's just pretty cool to walk around the street. Like they shut down everything for game days. And just being able to say, like, I'm an athlete at Tennessee is just insane.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Don't rub in the weather, young lady. That's not fair. That's not fair. We'll go back to the snowy Quad Cities. And you mentioned Coach Allison and your roots here to start. And I think that's something that's always super important. And that I love about Quad City athletes, getting to cover this area for 25 years. They leave and they do big things, but there's always a pull back to the Quad Cities. And I think it's the community as well. I think the community keeps track of what you're doing. Kind of talk about that, because you kind of mentioned you felt people from back home cheering you along and being proud of you as you did big things way down in Tennessee.
No, yeah. He texted me before the weekend and then after the weekend when I did have success, just checking in. And I thought that was awesome because he doesn't have to do that. Like, no one has to do that, because once I left, I was just like in a different part of the country and they're just keeping tabs on me is awesome. And just like when I walk around, sometimes like go watch people play softball, it's like people come up to me and they know who I am. Like that's crazy to me. Like I felt like I'm just watching like siblings play. Yeah. And it's just really cool. And it's weird to me because I'm not that big person that likes to like talk and do that thing. So it's pretty cool. Or just like seeing people reach out to me on like social media is insane. And just, I don't feel like that, but it's just pretty cool.
Talk about the Quad Cities and softball here in the Quad Cities, because, and I mentioned I did it for almost 3 decades, and it's really good. And they've gone out and done good things individually, but state championship list is long. And both sides of the river, not just in Illinois, but in Iowa, but in this Quad City area. You came from it. You grew up with it. Softball in the Quad Cities can hold their own with almost anybody around the area, can they not?
I believe so. I mean, I haven't played there in a while, but every time I go back, like, I feel like softball is the sport that we go back to, and I feel like it's getting people out of the Quad Cities. Not saying that everyone wants to leave it, but it's getting people scholarships, it's getting people to college, and it's pretty cool just seeing how far people can go with the sport in the Quad Cities, because I feel like it would be California, they would say like, oh, like they recruit there, but it's like, no, people are starting to recruit more out of the Quad Cities. So it's pretty awesome, the experiences people get from just playing in the Quad Cities.
I talked to you when we got on here before we started, and I said, do you get home? And you said, yeah, a little bit in the off season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, those kind of things. What do you miss about the Quad Cities? And you can't say family because that's obvious. Are there certain things in parts of the Quad Cities? I know family's number one. I get that. But what do you miss about the Quad Cities, this area? And what do you got to do when you get back here?
Well, I don't know. I just honestly do hang out with my family. But I would say during Christmas time, it doesn't feel like Christmas here because it does not get cold, and like you won't see snow on Christmas. So I feel like that's a big part because I'm a big, like, I love Christmas. I love the holidays, just spending it with family. And it doesn't feel like that here.
Sure.
But, and then I do like the break it gives me from Tennessee. Like at Tennessee, it's all softball, like 24/7. And like I get to go home and practice with my dad and just break from this type of softball and just like slow it down a little bit. And so I feel like that's a big like part that's really important to me.
I've known your dad for a long time. I've known your mom for a long time, went to school with your mom, and they've been very influential with you and been great with you. And you mentioned going back home and practicing with dad. Kind of talk about mom and dad for a second and what they've meant to you, not just growing up in this game, but obviously through the injuries and all that kind of stuff. It's good to have a solid foundation like those two, isn't it?
No, yeah, my dad's like die-hard softball, like biggest softball fan you can meet, like knows everything. And then my mom's like just the biggest supporter. Like she doesn't care what's going on in the field. Like she's just there to support me and just talk about whatever I want to talk about, even if it's not softball. So I feel like it's a good balance between the two. And so, yeah, they go everywhere and support me no matter where I'm playing.
I got to put you on the spot again. I ask people when they come on from the Quad Cities and aren't here, when you get back here, is there anything you got to hit up? Is it like, man, I love to go to, I always use Hungry Hobo because I love Hungry Hobo. Or is there a restaurant, a place, Whitey's? Is there something that you get home and you're like, okay, now that I'm home, I got to swing by here and do this or eat this?
There's this place in Moline called Cactus. It's like across the street from like where I live. So me and my family, we go there all the time because it's like an easy drive just down there. I probably will go to like an energy drink place like Atomic or something just because I do drink a lot of caffeine just to get me through. But that's about it.
No, hey, we went to Cactus like last week, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Before I let you go, this season and getting rolling and getting into it, obviously the season goes quickly and gets going fast. What's next for you guys? And you mentioned taking it one game at a time. You mentioned the trips you take, but a successful start recently. What's up next for Tennessee and what do you guys have in store, during the regular season? Obviously, you got to take one step at a time.
No, yeah, I think this season will prove a lot because we're, I think, 3-time back to like SEC champs. And now that we have Oklahoma and Texas in there, that's going to really show us like we're going to have to battle it out with all of them. Like it's going to be a really good conference and a really good season just to see where we're at. And we play away both times against Texas and Oklahoma. So that'll be a challenge. And I think it's just going to make us stronger in the end. Like whatever happens, but then it gets us ready for postseason.
One last one for you. What is the moment at Tennessee that you realized that I'm an SEC softball player? Was there a hit, a moment, a home run that you're like, okay, I've arrived, I'm here? Or what's your favorite moment as a volunteer so far?
I mean, my freshman year, I hit a home run, and that was not like the moment, but like I think it was pretty cool to see. Okay, so my freshman year, I tore my arm, right, and I still played, and I hit the home run, and it was awful. It was my first home run, and I couldn't really like celebrate it. And then this past weekend, I was on the field where I tore my arm, and I hit a grand slam, so I thought that was pretty awesome.
That is more than pretty awesome. That's outstanding.
Yeah.
Well done, young lady. Well, I appreciate you doing this. I know softball season comes quick and all that kind of stuff, and I was somebody that I wanted to catch up with and chat with, so I appreciate you doing it. Best of luck down there in Tennessee, and next time you're back at home, maybe after winning an SEC championship and maybe a national championship, we'll catch up again.
All right, perfect.
Awesome. She is Taylor Pannell, former Rock Island standout and Tennessee volunteer. Best of luck the rest of the way, Taylor.
Thank you so much.
All right, we are just getting warmed up here on OTA on a Thursday. A lot more to get to right after the break.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. It's a Thursday here in the Quad Cities. There's snow on the ground. It's February. People thinking March Madness and all that kind of stuff, but there's always something to talk about in the world of high school football, and that's where we're joined with our good friend from View from the West podcast, Greg Armstrong. And Greg, I mean, think about it. In the offseason for football in the NFL, everybody's talking about coaching changes and draft and all that kind of stuff. There's always news when it comes to the world of high school football, isn't there?
There is, yeah. That's kind of the one thing, like, you realize that it kind of goes year round these days. It's always kind of a talking point, especially when you start talking about, like, we don't dive into the high school recruiting scene, but there's plenty of camps and workouts and different things happening in the off season where, kids are trying to get noticed. And so, yeah, it seems like it keeps rolling, which is great. And then, like, Edgy Tim's always doing a day's countdown. I think we're under 200 now. So, the countdown's on again.
It's crazy. It is nuts. It's a great time of year when that comes, but there's always talk about high school football. So I figured we'd have you on, talk about some new coaches, some teams that are back playing varsity. And then I want to get your thoughts on best rivalries. And I've been talking to a lot of people throughout the week with it. And it's different in football. I think you can I think football is different. If you just take football and isolate that, there's some really cool ones as well. But I guess I want to start with you. It's give people some background on View from the West. Obviously, we used to work together like what seems like yesterday, but it's been like a while ago. But you covered local sports here in the area for a long, long time. And then this is a passion of yours that you picked up and started running with. And View from the West has become a cool, good thing here in the Quad Cities and beyond.
Yeah, well, that was, it was kind of like you said, we worked together at WQAD until 2017. And when I left, I was doing some communication marketing work and, just an 8-to-5 job. And there was a little bit of sports involved in that, but not a lot. And I just kept thinking, like, I want to stay connected and I want to stay involved, right? Because I left WQAD, I still loved, high school athletics. I still loved high school football. And so I just kind of started tossing around the idea of, a podcast dedicated to high school football in the Quad Cities area, but then kind of in the bigger area on the western side of the state when you start talking like Northwest Upstate Illini, or you get farther into what's now the Lincoln Land Conference with Farmington, Elmwood, Brimfield, and schools that are kind of like adjacent to the Quad Cities that are close, right? That we interact with or cross over with every once in a while. And I just kept thinking I wanted to stay involved. And we had done some podcasting with The Score, way back when. And I liked the idea of a podcast because there wasn't necessarily the same time constraints. There wasn't necessarily, I just felt like, we had the freedom to kind of cover what we wanted and cover how we wanted to do it. And, so that was kind of the start of it. And I brought Mitch in, truth be told, to talk about uniforms for one episode. And then Mitch has been along for the ride ever since. So It's been great. Yeah, it's been great. It's been fun to watch it grow and to see coaches and fans and players that really kind of like attach themselves to it, and they really appreciate the coverage.
No, and it's good to have a wingman like Mitch. I don't mean that like as an
That's
assistant,
right.
but as a partner in crime, because you can always chat with each other. I'm finding that out. It's fun, but like every day to talk with yourself is interesting. So it's always good to have that person to banter with and talk with as well. And you mentioned, I think this is is it 6 coming up? Is it year 6 coming up that you've done it?
So we're in that weird space where we started in the spring COVID football season.
Okay.
So technically we just covered our 5th football season. This will kind of be like our 5th year coming up, but yes, our 6th season of covering high school football is coming up in 25. So
that's awesome. No, that's awesome. And like I said, it's grown. It's doing great things. So if you don't know about it after this, go subscribe and all that good stuff as well. So, well, during the off season, there are coaching changes that come about. I know there's a new coach down at Mercer County. So let's kind of talk about a few of those. Mercer County has a new head coach. It's a storied tradition, to get that program and to move along with it. Talk about the hire and maybe what you expect with what he can do with Mercer County football.
Yeah, so Mercer County's new head football coach will be Fred Lucas. That's a familiar name in our area, in the Quad Cities area. He's been an assistant with Mercer County for the last 8 years, but before that, he was a head coach at the Roseville Yorkwood Co-op, or the Roseville Yorkwood, I guess. I don't know if they were a school or a co-op, either way. Then there was the Westwood Co-op, which was another one out there by Westmer. And then eventually Westmer fed into Aledo, into Mercer County. And then he actually moved, was at United as a head coach at kind of the end of kind of their run, where they were a playoff team every year. And he was a part of that run at the end of it. So I think it's a good hire. It's someone who's well established as, someone who's been around football, who's been around a football program as a head coach, as an assistant coach. And so he's familiar with Mercer County. He's familiar with being a head coach. It's a job, like you said, that comes with some name recognition, Mercer County, and certainly going back to the Aledo Green Dragon days. It's a storied tradition. When you show up, that's a great atmosphere at George Pratt Memorial Field. But I think that there's some work to do here because, obviously we don't know the full details, the full extent of what happened and what led to Matlick being dismissed as head football coach. But I think there's just some work to be done to kind of rebuild a little bit, not necessarily rebuild the talent. I think the talent's there. It's just kind of rebuilding the team and the program to kind of be all pulling in the same direction. Because I think that, for whatever reason, unfortunately, things they didn't work last year. They weren't working. The record wasn't there, but just more importantly, you saw the off the field issues, which you don't want to see in any program. So, I hope for the best for Coach Lucas. He was a great guy when I met him back in his days, out at United, when he had a couple playoff teams there and some really talented athletes. So, hopefully he can jump right in and being familiar with those players, kind of get everything moving in the right direction.
Another head coach I kind of want to talk about, a new head coach is down at Knoxville, where the Blue Bullets have a new head coach. Kind of talk about the change there, because it's not every year there's a new head football coach in Knoxville. So kind of talk about what the Blue Bullets have done and how they move forward. A successful program once again down in Knoxville as well. Kind of the same lines as Mercer County. Maybe not the same when it comes to state championship success that's been in the past, but still a very successful program.
Yeah, you look at what Knoxville's done, and since I was working in this area, especially when I was starting at WQAD, they were led by Ryan Hebbard. Ryan Hebbard won 83 games in 13 years, leading the Blue Bullets. He had an undefeated regular season in 2019, trip to the quarterfinals in 19 and 22. Really successful head coach that, they kind of were one of those teams where they just couldn't quite get past the hurdle of the quarterfinals. They ended, had those couple great seasons ending up in the quarterfinals, couldn't quite make that next push. But either way, just a really good program. They're kind of one of those programs we always joked about, like, they do what they do, right? Like, they're going to run the ball, and they're going to keep running the ball, and you got to find a way to stop them. And a lot of those years that teams were not able to find ways to stop them. So anyway, Ryan Hebbard stepped down as head coach, and stepping in now is Marty Turner. And so Marty Turner was an assistant coach under Coach Hebbard at Knoxville, but he was also an assistant coach at Galesburg in the years that they were having success. And you already know where I'm going with this, Dazzo. Maybe one of my favorite Friday nights ever. Marty Turner was there on the sidelines for Berg Pride.
Love it.
For the Berg Pride, baby.
Love it.
So for the people who need the background on it, it was Galesburg and Quincy. And now let's see. I had the year pulled up in front of me because I didn't want to mess it up.
Was it 17?
Let's see. It would have been in 2014.
Okay.
They won in overtime, and it was a big game for them. It was on their way to a playoff run that year. They were playing against Quincy. They were losing at half. They came back. They tied it up, win it in overtime. So like in the kind of the chaos of like on the field after the game, I'm looking for the kid who got the strip sack, the fumble recovery to win the game. And man, I don't even remember what his name was, but I'm catching him right in the middle of the huddle, and I'm asking him one question. And before he can even get the first question done, he's mobbed by his teammates, and he just says, "Berg Pride, baby, that's all I got to say." And then he runs off with his team. It's like, I just left the whole thing in the soundbite. It was great.
Yeah, and I think, and this shows how kind of old we are, but that was the first time. And what I remember the most about that is that was the first time that we had laptops that like you could stay at a game long enough in which you just said, "Hey, I'm gonna edit it here and send it back." I'm like, "All right, that works."
Yeah.
And when you did it, we're just like, wow, that changes everything, because we can stay at games longer. We can do these kind of things. If you got someone out there you can trust to do it all, and to get reaction after the game like that was awesome as well.
Well, that was always like, that was kind of a game changer, like in my time working in TV, when you kind of had that realization of like, if you want to stay, you can stay and try to get these highlights that you used to feel like you're missing out on, right? Like when we used to have to get back to the station, or if you didn't get back to the station, you're going to have to either rely on a live truck, so somebody else had to come set it up, and you had to edit, in a clunky editing system in the back of a truck and all this stuff. And so, no, for that game, I was editing on the sideline, sitting on the turf on the Galesburg sideline. So
TV's so glorious, isn't it?
Oh yeah, exactly. But we both kind of come from the Dan Pearson School of Broadcasting, where like I just have the tendency to push it a little bit, whereas like that overtime was probably starting at about like 9:40, and I'm still like, I'm going to get the highlight. I had edited the first half, and I think I might have edited a little bit in the third quarter. Sure. And then I just kept pushing it, waiting. And it worked out. That night it worked out. I got everything. You
mentioned the Dan Pearson School. You know what that sickness is called that you're talking about? Staying a little too late? It's Pearsonitis.
It's that Pearsonitis. Absolutely. I got that bad. Yeah. I get it bad.
I think, hey, I always tell people more about Birch, maybe. I always say Birch taught me a lot of good things, taught me some bad things too. Pearson taught me a ton of good things. Maybe the one bad thing he taught me was like, stay for that one more play. You can do it. And then he always would say, hey, make sure, drive safe, or what he'd say, drive fast, takes chances. Jokingly, he would say, drive fast, take chances. So, we both had to deal with that a little bit as well. But so tell us about Marty Turner as a football coach. Obviously a name that's familiar to me, but a guy that brings some real good, I don't want to say stability because it had it, but it should be a smooth transition for the Blue Bullets.
Well, first of all, he's a big fan of You from the West podcast. So we love that. Right?
Of course.
But no, so he's been an assistant coach for 20 years, going back to, Farmington's head coach now, Toby Vallis, has led them to great things. He was at Knoxville. And so Ryan Hebbard worked under Coach Vallis from 2012 to 2020. From 2004 to 2012. And then he went to Galesburg, like I mentioned, from 2012 to 2020, working under Coach Doherty and Michael Washabaugh. And they had success there, had several playoff teams. I forgot this until Marty Turner mentioned it in his message to me. In 2016, Galesburg knocked off number 1 Peoria High in a regular season game. And Peoria went on to be a state champion that year. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. So, like, there was some time in there where, like, Galesburg was really exciting football. And we've joked about it before. I always say, in our area, the Western Big Six is best when a team like Galesburg kind of puts themselves up near the top. Or a team like an Alleman, getting back to, we'll talk about that in a minute, but when a team like Alleman's in the mix, I just feel like you get those traditional teams over the years now where we have Moline, now we have Sterling, Quincy's injected themselves in there in a big way. But man, when Galesburg's in there and like you can go to Galesburg and know you're going to get a good game out of anybody, that's fun in the Western Big Six. So anyway, Marty Turner was a part of that. Now he takes over this Knoxville program. I'm excited for him to kind of make a program his own, right? He's been an assistant for a long time. He gets to kind of turn this Knoxville team, into his own. I think he'll probably keep it a lot of what has been working for them for years, but it's his now. So that's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Going with that topic, United Township in recent years have been relevant and good, and what Nick Welch is doing there, it's like that's great for the conference because you just don't you have a good game every night. You know what I mean? If you have depth and quality and depth, it gives a good game every night, which we like, but then also or every Friday night. But also it helps prepare those teams for runs in the postseason, all that kind of stuff as well. Well, you mentioned the old alma mater.
That's probably the best. Honestly, I should have mentioned that. Sorry, Coach Welch. I should have mentioned them in that conversation because that's the call out, right? Because for years, the trip to East Moline, the trip to the Soul Bowl, that was kind of an expected win for a lot of teams, right? For a lot of years. And so I think you're exactly right. For United Township to be one of those teams that's fighting every week, and you never know what you're going to get. That's right. That's
Coach.
Right. I want to stay on Nick Welch's good side.
Yeah, Coach Welch is such a gracious soul. I doubt he's going to hold anything against either of us. You know what I mean? I mean, he's always very forgiving. So no, I love Coach Welch. But we mentioned and we talked about Alleman. I talked about it early on Monday. We had Coach Schmalbach on to talk about Alleman returning back to varsity football for the first time in 2 years. I kind of talked on Tuesday with John Marks about how I was surprised there was some I don't want to say negative backlash, but just there was some negative comments on social media. And I just thought that was kind of maybe too soon because of the fact that like let them at least celebrate, hey, they're back and get them rolling before you can voice concerns that are warranted, because when you're not there for 2 years and you had to forfeit a game the year that you were there, I understand there are some warranted concerns and all that kind of stuff. So, but with all that being said, I talked to Coach Schmalbach, Alleman guy. I talked to John Marks, Alleman homer. I talked to myself, who's got an Alleman helmet on their desk. So I get the optics of the whole thing, Greg. When you hear Alleman back at the Western Big Six playing varsity football, I guess what first comes to your mind is someone who covers that conference extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Alleman being back in the mix is great for the Western Big Six. I think that this is not the same Alleman program. It's not the same Alleman school as 10, 20 years ago. Obviously, we know that. But I think in either case, if Alleman and Coach Schmalbach are committed to putting a varsity football team on the field and numbers are increasing, I think that is reason for excitement. That's reason for optimism. I understand the questions that people have, because I think from the outside, outside of Alleman looking in, there's concerns, right? Because they've had to fill games in their schedule. But I think when you go back, you were there. When you go back to the Western Big Six banquet before this football season, Coach Schmalbach was pretty clear then that they were fighting to get back on the field in 2025.
Yeah,
so
they knew.
It's been So that's the thing is that I think that this announcement came as kind of the pomp and circumstance on the Super Bowl day and a commercial to roll out there on social, which is great. But I think in the background, it had already been kind of announced. So I think the cause for, a little nervousness is warranted because they haven't been able to field a team. But I think they've been confidently moving towards this for a long time. And I think that I think they're there. They're ready for that next step. Are they ready to win the conference this year? No, maybe not.
You can say no, they're not. It's okay. They're not.
Fine, fair. But what you do have is a lot of football players that have been denied varsity football for 2 years now, and they're hungry to get back on the field. I thought that was one thing that stood out in your talk with Coach Schmalbach, was that he's got kids that are saying are we sure we're going to do it? Are we like they're excited to get that question behind them and to be focused on Friday nights. And man, I can't even imagine, like he talked about, the frustration of having juniors and seniors or older or kids practicing on a Friday night instead of playing on a Friday night. Like, that really stuck out to me too. Like, that's got to be hard to find the motivation in those moments when you know that your counterparts are playing games on Fridays and you're not there. So I think I'm happy for him, and I really like Coach Smolbach. He's been great to me, and he's been great to talk to, and I think that he's, like he mentioned to you, like he's been anxious to go and kind of had to be pulled back a few times. Like, let's do it the right way. And I think they're there. And I hope that the numbers are where he thinks they're going to be, because it'll be great to see them back on a football field.
Yeah, I do think that, like, well, first, my 3 points that you kind of thought of when, as you were talking, the problem wasn't the kids. So, like, the thought process of, like, it was Alleman's fault and those kids' fault. Not to get too into things, but the 3 people that caused all the trouble have been gone a long time. So, like, you have to be able to move on and give them a second chance. You know what I mean? And, like, I've been the first person to say, like, you have to do this correctly, because you can't pull the plug again. I don't know if you get to insert it one more time. Like, you can't go back and forth, you know? Yeah. I think back to the old Office sketch, snip, snap, snip, snap. If you get it, you get it. But you can't keep doing.
Did not think that reference was coming today. But
I won't explain it, but you know what I mean. You can't keep going back and forth. You gotta, like, so I get that. And I think they cautiously did it so that you can. If anybody's wondering and questioning an opponents, and I totally get it. You heard Coach Smolbach stand on the set and say he had to tell his own kid, his own player, Will Otten-Tomes, hey, you know, we're definitely playing. And he kept saying, are you sure, coach? And he's like, yes. Are you sure? So if the players inside of the program were still cautiously optimistic that this was actually happening, then I totally understand United Township, Moline, other conference schools, and not all of them, being apprehensive that they can actually pull it off. So I do understand that. But as you mentioned, or not as you mentioned, but Riverdale went through something similar. When they came back their first year, they weren't very good. I think Guy Derricks will tell you they weren't very good. But you have to get back in the pool. And now you're back in the pool, and then maybe in a year or 2 or 3, you're swimming a little bit. And then after that, maybe you're swimming good and you're back in the race, but you got to get back in the pool. So I get the questions. I just hated the fact that it was like the next day. Like, that was more like just trying to rain on somebody's parade than anything else. Totally understand and get the questions and get the thought process of it. But Greg, we've talked, the Western Big Six is best, not when Alleman's there. It's not an Alleman thing, but when they're fully loaded, when they have all of their conference members. This is any of them. If this happened to any of them, it's always better. And this goes almost to a point with, like, Quincy. Now, Quincy never went away, but when I was growing up, Quincy wasn't around. I mean, they were, and having them good in the conference is good for everybody. So a founding member of the conference, to get them back rolling again, I think is a good thing. And man, knock on wood, hopefully they can make it through the season. If they don't make it through the season, I'm going to be mad at Coach Smolbach, because I'm going to look like an idiot. So he's got to get back rolling just so that I don't look like an idiot as well.
Well, I mean, it's hard to make you not look like an idiot. So we're going to.
True. Very true. Very true.
But you brought up Riverdale, and those same frustrations existed with opposing coaches in the Three Rivers, a few years ago when Riverdale was going through the same issues. So it's not unique to Alleman. This situation has happened in our area very close by. And you look at the roadmap that Riverdale has laid out there. Will things go exactly the same way? I don't know. You don't know how these things are going to play out, but I think the pieces are in place, and you have a leader in Schmolbach that's ready to take the next step. That's the best you can ask for right now. So I think that, like for the Western Big Six, coaches, fans of other teams who feel slighted by it over the years, like, just let's give them a little space here to try to work back into it. I think that's best for the Western Big Six. And long term, I don't know what it'll mean, because Alleman's a weird fit in the Western Big Six these days. So I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole. Long term, I don't know what it means. But for right now, I think it's best for them to be on the field playing varsity football. And I'm excited for that much.
Yeah, Alaman's a weird fit for any conference right now, unfortunately. And I think that's
that's true.
the tough thing. And you know what? They were for a while. They just continued to compete, to their credit, in the Western Big Six. I think, gosh, the COVID spring that we talked about, you launched this super successful View from the West podcast hearing. I think they went 4-2. I think they beat Moline. I think they were, and so it wasn't that long ago. And I'm guessing enrollment was probably 400-ish at that point. And it's probably 300-ish now. So when you think, it's only 100 kids, but it's 25% of the population. 100 kids at Rock Island, Moline, Sterling, bigger schools isn't a big as percentage of the student body. When you lost nearly 25% of your student body when you're already small to begin with, it's kind of tough to do. So all good topics, all things that will be talked a lot about as we get to July, August, and we get ready to go into the season. But I wanted to have you on as someone who wasn't as biased as I obviously look up here doing this as well. So before I let you go, we've been talking rivalries throughout the week. My buddy Don Umlin brought it up to me. He's like, you should bring it up. And it was a good topic. And I've gotten feedback from different people, but you have a unique perspective because it's a football perspective from you. So while, and maybe it's the same, usually they're kind of the same, but there's some football rivalries that just, they mean more. They do more. So what are those rivalries? I'm not going to make you rank them or anything unless you want to, but what are those rivalries that you're like, man, when it comes to high school football, I've got to check this rivalry out?
I'll start in the Western Big Six, and I will say, to me, nothing screams rivalry more than if you get that shot right down the line of scrimmage with the Rock Island helmet and the Moline helmet, right there. That to me screams high school football and a classic rivalry. Now, I will say, if I'm going to go with a favorite, I really love what Kewanee and Princeton do. It's very similar in the history. It's been going on maybe as long or longer than Rock Island Moline. It's right there with it. They have a huge trophy they play for. And over the last few years, both teams have been very competitive. Princeton, we know all about. Kewanee's been a playoff team a few times in there. That's the one that really stands out to me as I want to make sure I'm at that game every year. But yeah, the Rock Island Moline one is always, it just looks like a classic rivalry as well.
Can I talk to you about favorite trophy? Because there's a game that went away, and that's the thing too, is you sit there and there's always that talk of districts and all that kind of stuff. The cool part for conferences for me that you lost on the Iowa side. It's that state that you live in, Greg, but don't talk about. It's Iowa. It's a weird area. But the Rock or Assumption Bettendorf are no more in football. And North Scott and Bettendorf are no more in football, and PV and Bettendorf still play, but North Scott PV don't play anymore. So these cool rivalries don't happen, and that's what I always worry about in Illinois with districts. And I know you can protect certain ones, and I get that, but moving around conferences, it didn't happen for a couple years. But Morrison and Fulton are back playing in the same conference, and that damn wooden shoe, man, that wooden shoe. It's like when you go to shoot the game, you're like, find the trophy and get the opening shot of the freaking wooden shoe. They play for a wooden shoe, Greg.
Mitch is going to be so mad that wasn't in my opening statement of this conversation. But that is also a great game. That one's a great game. We actually sold, a View from the West sold t-shirts this year that said the wooden shoe belongs in Morrison or the wooden shoe belongs in Fulton, whichever side of the fence you're on. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a classic trophy. I believe Mitch Stormer was the winner of the wooden shoe back in his days as Morrison QB1. So View from the West can brag about that,
Yeah.
I live vicariously through Mitch's high school football glory.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it, man. Tell me about it, brother. With that being said.
Okay. So there's that, and just down the road, Sterling and Geneseo. That's another great one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you know what one in the Western Big Six gets slept on football-wise? And I think it's because of their head coaches now, and I'm not saying they don't like each other, but they're both young, energetic dudes. But when when Coach Welch, which this is like the third or fourth time I've talked about Coach Welch or said his name on my show this week, which is annoying. I say that out of jest because I'm hoping he's watching. But when Coach Welch says that they're getting ready to play the school down the road and pulls the Ohio State Michigan stuff where he won't even talk about the actual school's name, like it's a sleepy rivalry, and I get it because for so long in football, United Township and Moline, it wasn't very competitive, but now it is. I mean, Coach Welch just last year or 2 years ago, however you want to look at it, 2 football seasons ago, they knocked off Moline, and it's been a competitive game. And I love that rivalry. I love it when coaches embrace rivalries, I guess is the best way to put it.
So I will say that I think from when I moved into this area in the early 2000s, it was, again, unfortunately, United Township was not really on the map, right?
Yep.
But at that same time, it was when Rocky and Moline were both pretty equal footing. And Moline's kind of gone up and down a little bit, and it's same with Rocky. But for the most part, year after year, they were going to be a competitive football game. And with the history attached to it, I think that's why my head always goes to that game first. But in recent years, United Township and Moline has become like the rivalry game in the Metro Quad Cities, for sure, I would say.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Hey, I'm an Alleman guy, if everyone didn't know. And those rivalries between Rocky Alleman were as good as they got.
Yep.
I mean, and that's the town thing or the city thing, both being in the same city and all that kind of stuff. Alleman Moline, the good rivalry as well. So, all right, Greg, well, I appreciate you doing this. You do have a real job, so I want to make you go back and actually do your real work. Before I let you go, did you miss not being in TV news yesterday when Snowmageddon 2025 came around?
I literally, and I quote, was putting on boots to go shovel, and I looked at my wife and said, "Nope, don't miss news today."
Oh.
Like, just no. So here's the thing: is on a day like yesterday when it snows and you get in and you know it's going to be something outside, you're going to be cold. I'm not a winter guy. Like I don't snow ski. Like I don't ski. I don't do any of the winter sports. So it's like, all right, like I'm done. I live in the Midwest. I should get used to it, right? But I don't care. I don't like snow. So you know it's going to be a bad day in news. But the thing was, here's your options. You're either like going to cover the weather, like outdoors, there's a car accident because of icy roads, so go get there and go get video of it. Or the good side of the story is go to like Snowstar and see people enjoying the snow while you're carrying around expensive equipment in the wet, cold snow.
That's fogging up.
Terrible. There's no winning.
It's fogging up on you, and you can't even get a good shot and all that. No, I completely agree. And I love the weather guys that I've worked with. There's no malice in it, but I always joke, and it's not a joke because it's true. It's like, if I mispronounce the last name Punkowitz, and I just grabbed a name there's actually Punkowitz. They go to school with my son, but that's a tough last name to pronounce. So if I would mispronounce that on TV, I get emails that'd be like, "Hey, you mispronounced my kid's name. Can you go back and say it again or correct it to?" So I get this crankiness because I mispronounced a hard last name. Greg, it didn't get 8 inches of snow yesterday. Like I don't know if you know that,
oh boy,
but there wasn't 8 inches of snow yesterday. There wasn't 5. Like there was 2. There was 2. But anyways, I know it's harder to do than what I do. Or what I did. So I give them the benefit of the doubt, and they're awesome people, and it's a hard thing to predict.
Here's the thing though. I feel like if I don't bring this up before the end of this segment, Wheezy's going to jump all over me. Because let's be honest here. You're not the one to talk about like how bad it is to cover snow. Because I remember back in the days when like I'd get into work and I knew that it wasn't going to be a sports day. I was covering news that day, and Jose sending me somewhere. And you're sitting at the desk. You're not really going anywhere.
Hey, I always would say, like, if it's going to snow, just snow enough that it cancels sports, like around the area. Yesterday would have been great. It would have been like, "Hey, Dazzo, how much time do you need?" And I would have been like, minute. 2 minutes. You don't need me at all? You're good? Okay, I'm good. Yeah. I'll work on other things. I'll get ready for Friday night. You know what I mean? And that meant go to Chick-fil-A and get some dinner and come back to the office and watch whatever basketball games were on is all I would have been doing. So
there you go.
It would have been great. So
listen, listen to you try to talk about how the lens fogged up. Like you were out doing.
I've heard stories, Greg. I've heard stories. What's a camera?
Okay, yeah.
I didn't touch a camera. Come on. All right. Well, anyways, at this point, it's time to let you go when we're starting to talk about Dazzo's laziness. So I appreciate it. Tell people again how they follow you on social media for View from the West, and then also YouTube and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yes, you can head out to YouTube. You can search View from the West. You'll find our channel there. We have game highlights from the last few seasons. We have podcast clips. We have full podcasts up there. You can also obviously find us on X at View from West Pod. That's kind of where we do most of our work there is, on X and then also on Instagram. We'll post some stuff there as well. So you can find game highlights, clips from the show, all the good stuff, all the fun Mitch and Greg banter you can handle.
I can't get myself enough Mitch and Greg. That's what I keep saying to myself all fall. So, Greg, I appreciate it. We'll talk to you real soon.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. He is Greg Armstrong from View from the West, talking a little high school football on a snowy February morning. We got more to get to right here on OTA on a Thursday.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Thursday here in the Quad Cities. Thursday, February 13th. It's been a fun show so far. I want to thank all of my guests for coming on and joining me today. Of course, Tom Kakert talking about the Iowa Hawkeyes getting a victory on the road. The men winning their first road game of the season, true road game of the season out at Rutgers yesterday. If you missed Tom Kakert talking about the Hawkeyes and Brock Harding and his good game, you can check that out if you missed it. It's on today's show as well. Also, really, really thankful that Taylor Pannell took some time to catch up. The former Rock Island softball standout doing big things down in Tennessee with the Volunteers, one of the best programs in the SEC in the entire country. So if you missed Taylor Pannell, she was on a short time ago, go check that out as well. And then, of course, we just wrapped up with Greg Armstrong from View from the West. Greg talking high school football, and it sounds funny because it's February to be talking high school football, but football dominates. It really does. We've talked a lot about it this week with Alleman coming back to varsity football, and then, of course, some coaching changes. Greg had everything kind of wrapped up right there, so make sure you go check that out if you're missing your high school football coverage, which I think a lot of people are as they get through the winter months and get ready for the spring, summer, and then eventually football season right around the corner. It comes faster than you think. Of course, Greg mentioned it's less than 200 days to the start of high school football season once again, so time flies when you're having fun. It's been a fun week so far on the show. On Monday, we had Pat Anger, Julian Vandervelde, Jeff Schmolbach, I had to think for a second, and Braden Freeman, who got the 1,000 point milestone last weekend. So if you missed that show, go check that out. Also on Tuesday, we had Carter Bell and several others. Wednesday's show had Jim Manson talking Illini. So if you're cranky because we talked too much Iowa today, it was all about the Illini yesterday and Iowa State because Jake Brend was on yesterday as well. So go check out yesterday's show if you're a cranky Illini fan or Cyclone fan. We got you covered all the way around. Also, Wild Man Wednesday yesterday as well. So it's been a fun week of shows. If you missed anything, go check them out on YouTube. Also, all of your podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Spotify, Podbean, you name it, we should be on it. If there is a podcasting platform that we are not on, let me know. I'll work on getting on that as well. But I think we're up to snuff when it comes to the podcasting platforms as well. So, and again, also, if you are supporting the show, you're watching the show, you like the show, make sure you tell a friend or two. Make sure you're subscribing to any of the venues or the platforms that I just talked about as well. That helps us out as well. We want to thank you guys for watching today's show. We will see you next time right here on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo.